Our next group is one you're probably a little bit familiar with, because these are things that probably eaten some of them before. So it's mollusks, and mollusks include sort of a pretty wide range of different types of living things, many of which I'm sure you've seen before. So mollusks are soft-bodied invertebrates. They have body systems, and often many of them also have a shell or two shells, and we'll talk about some of those. Here's an example of one that doesn't have a shell. What is that? It's a slug. Find them around here. They live on land. You probably see them in your backyard and stuff sometimes in the spring, summer, and fall. They eat vegetables. They eat plant matter. Like if you have in your backyard like landscaping with plants have big broad leaves, lots of times you'll see the slugs there early in the morning eating those leaves and stuff like that. The ones we have around here are pretty small, you know, they're maybe about this big. They can grow pretty large. You can have like banana slugs in certain areas that grow, you know, this big. I don't know, shaped like a banana, I guess. So they have antenna, and they sort of move around with this. This is called the foot. The muscular foot allows them to sort of move around. They have those soft bodies, this mantle. Many of them are, like we said, in a shell, but not these. The octopus is a type of mollusk. They're very advanced. They have advanced body systems, an advanced nervous system. We'll watch a video in a little bit that shows some of the amazing ability the octopus has to blend in with its environment. They're very impressive. One group of mollusks are called the bivalves, meaning that they have two shells. Things like oysters, scallops, clams, mussels. There's slight differences in terms of their taxonomy. They have different sort of types of shells and things like that, but they're all somewhat similar. You know, inside of a clam, if you've eaten clams or oysters or mussels, the inside you have basically what you're eating is all of the various body systems are in that little thing that you eat. The reproductive systems, the excretory systems, all of their digestive system. It's all in there in that chewy thing that you eat when you have clams, whatever. Joe?
What's a pearl?
So sometimes a little irritant, a little piece of sand or something gets into the body of the mollusk, and their response is to start secreting this substance that kind of covers this irritating particle that's in there with a smooth surface, so it's less irritating. And those layers build up over time, and that forms a pearl eventually.
Is it hard?
A pearl's hard, yeah. And they can form in other bivalves as well. Go ahead.
Are clams like born with a shell, or like how are clams?
No, the shell forms sort of afterwards, yeah.
How do they do that?
They just, like lots of things, they just have special cells that secrete the calcium or the material of the shell, and it just sort of forms. And, you know, most of the things you find on a beach when you're finding seashells are really leftovers from mollusks that have died, and their shells don't just decompose, they get crushed up or they wash up on the beach, and that's what you find when you find shells. That's, what is that?
Shells? Oh, it's a snail.
That's a snail. Yeah. I was in France last week, I saw that. Snails are common food in France. You could buy it like at the grocery store alongside like canned tuna and stuff. You could also, they have escargot, which is snails, and they're on the menu at lots of different restaurants and stuff like that.
Calamari with marinara.
Yeah, they can be in butter or soup or lots of different. This is a nautilus, I guess. This is a nautilus swimsuit. It makes like these sort of spirally kind of shell, sticks out of the end. This is a conch, okay, and this is they form a big shell. Like a conch shell is like a big one, like you see in TV. If somebody blows in, it makes a sound. I think it's conch.
I've heard conch.
Yeah. But they're edible as well. People eat that. They're
I was on vacation in Frisco last year, and the slug was still in it.
Mhm.
They get it out and like boil it.
Yeah, because I mean the shells like they're not like sometimes people make the mistake of thinking they're like a hermit crab. You know, a hermit crab crawls into a shell and it comes out and goes in and out. This is like part of their body, so like it's attached to them. So they can't crawl out of it. It's just part of their body.
We don't already have one, but last my grandma or we found one. And we were driving back.
Found one what?
A conch shell.
Oh, yeah.
A conch shell,
Yeah.
like a big one.
Yeah.
And like the thing is still in it, like it smells terrible.
Yeah, if it dies, like
Yeah,
then
it
it's
smells
like just
terrible.
rotting in
We
there.
had to
It smells
throw it
horrible.
out.
Yeah.
Is it that either happened to us or a friend?
Joe?
But
No, sorry.
also,
Stallone.
we have like an actual conch shell homes and like clean out and stuff. And then say you can like hear the ocean in it. Like I mean obviously you can't.
Yeah,
but
yeah. You
it's
get
like
like
what
the
you can.
air
Yeah,
moving
the
to it.
waves.
Yeah.
That's like
Joe?
One time I found a snail, and then instead of being nice to it, I put salt on it.
Yeah, somebody said the last class. Yeah, that basically sucks all the water out and dehydrates them.
it's so
It
mean.
kind of like imploded.
All right. Our last group, and we're going to talk about this group in a little more detail than the other groups, is the arthropods.
It's Iron Man.
What does the root pod mean? Like pseudopod? What did we say? Like podiatrist?
Like false.
Pseudopod.
Feet.
False feet. Pod means feet. Arthropod means jointed feet. Because the arthropods have a hard shell on the outside called an exoskeleton.
So like
And it's a protective layer that's around the outside. It's just kind of a shell. It's not a living, it doesn't grow once it's formed. And because they have to move around, they have these little gaps between these plates in their exoskeleton. It's like if you imagine a suit of armor, you want to have a suit of armor that has just like two tubes of steel and you gotta walk around like this. That doesn't make any sense. You couldn't kill a dragon or anything. So you need gaps there, right? Where your joints bend is you have two separate plates so that they can bend in between. Well, the skeleton or the exoskeleton of an arthropod is similar. It has these little gaps in between so it can move around. It's a protective layer. It gives their body structure. In some cases, helps protect them from predators and so on. And arthropods actually make up most animals. 75% of all the animals are in this phylum. So that's a lot. There's a huge variety of types of arthropods. So there's great diversity. They have bilateral symmetry in these bodies divided up into segments. And we sort of put them in, they're classified into different groups within the arthropod phylum based on their number of body segments, the number of legs, things like that. So there's 5 classes. We're going to go a little bit further. None of the other groups did we talk about classes within the phylum, but this one we will. So what are some of the groups that are a part of this arthropod phylum? What do you think a class might be? Joe?
crustaceans.
Crustaceans is one. Okay. How about another one? What's another type of arthropod? Insects, yep. There's probably one more you could probably guess.
Isn't right? What's the ones that spiders are?
Yeah?
Arachnids.
Arachnids. The other two you may not know. They are millipedes and centipedes.
Centipedes and millipedes and their own.
Yes. So here you have obviously a crab. That's which group?
Crustaceans.
Crustacean. And you can see its exoskeleton. And these gaps that you see in white, those are the joints between the plates of its exoskeleton. And so obviously the exoskeleton on the crab helps protect it from predators, but there's a problem in that it doesn't grow. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. Here you have centipedes, millipedes. Why is Iron Man on here?
Because he's bug exoskeleton.
He's an exoskeleton.
But
right?
bugs can't fly or eat lasers. Wait, was he born like a normal person and then like he just
All right,
like
watch the
dropped
movie,
that
Cam, we'll
dude
go
on
over
it and
All right. So if we look at our various classes of arthropods, let's try and match them up here. So which,
You don't have that.
yeah, you don't have this slide, so that's okay. Which class of arthropods has 3 body sections,
Insectoids.
6 legs, and 2 antennae?
Insectoids.
Insects.
Insects. So here, like this bee, those are insects. 8 legs?
Spider.
That's not a class.
Arachnid.
Arachnids.
Oh.
10 legs.
Oh,
Those
crustaceans.
are crustaceans. So centipedes and millipedes feel sometimes confused. Centipedes, for each of their bodies, they have many body sections, and on each one they have just 2 legs, one pair of legs on each body section. Most of them are carnivorous. And then millipedes have 2 pairs of legs on each body section for 4 legs. They're usually herbivorous.
Which are when they don't find the centipede or the...
So I'm going to show you this video. This is going back a little bit to mollusks.
Which one's poison?
This is, they can both be poisonous. This one shows some various invertebrates. Some of them are mollusks, some are not, but it shows you some of the amazing ability they have to sort of blend in with their environment. Some of them have bioluminescence where they glow and produce light because they live hundreds of feet underwater where no light can actually penetrate. So many of them create their own light. Just some interesting types of
The
living
octopus?
things.
What is it? Octopi? The plural for octopus.
Octopods. Why do we always watch this
We're going to go on a dive to the deep sea, and anyone that's had that lovely opportunity knows that for about 2.5 hours on the way down, it's a perfectly positively pitch black world. And we used to see the most mysterious animals out the window that you couldn't describe, these blinking lights, a world of bioluminescence like fireflies. Dr. Edith Witter, she's now at the Ocean Research and Conservation Association, was able to come up with a camera that could capture some of these incredible animals, and that's what you're seeing here on the screen. That's all bioluminescence, like I said, just like fireflies. There's a flying turkey under the tree. I'm a geologist by training, but I love that. And you see some of the bioluminescence they use to avoid being eaten, some they use to attract prey, but all of it from an artistic point of view is just positively amazing. And a lot of what goes on inside, there's a fish with glowing eyes, pulsating eyes. Some of the colors are designed to hypnotize, these lovely patterns. And then this last one of my favorites, this pinwheel design, just absolutely amazing, every single dive. That's the unknown world, and today we've only explored about 3% of what's out in the ocean. Already we found the world's highest mountains, world's deepest valleys, underwater lakes, underwater waterfalls. A lot of that we shared with you from the stage, and in a place where we thought no life at all, we find more life, we think, in diversity and density than the tropical rainforest, which tells us that we don't know much about this planet at all. There's still 97%, and either that 97% is empty or just full of surprises. But I want to jump up to shallow water now and look at some creatures that are positively amazing. The cephalopods, headfoots. As a kid, I knew them as calamari mostly. But this is an octopus. This is the work of Dr. Roger Hanlon at the Marine Biological Lab. And just fascinating how cephalopods can, with their eyes, incredible eyes, sense their surrounding, look at light, look at patterns. There's an octopus moving across the reef, finds a spot to settle down, curls up, and then disappears into the background. Tough thing to do. In the next bit, we're going to see a couple of squid. These are squid. Now, males, when they fight, if they're really aggressive, they turn white. And these two males are fighting. They do it by bouncing their butts together, which is an interesting concept. Now, here's the male on the left, the female on the right. And now the male has managed to split his coloration so the female only always sees the kinder, gentler squid in him. And the males on the We're going to see it again. Let's take a look at it again. Watch the coloration. White on the right, brown on the left. He takes a step back. So he's keeping off the other males by splitting his body and comes up on the other side. Bingo. Now, I'm told that's not just a squid phenomenon with males, but I know that's it. Cuttlefish. I love cuttlefish. This is a giant Australian cuttlefish, and there he is, his droopy little eyes.
God.
But they could do pretty amazing things too. Here we're going to see one backing into a crevice, and watch his tentacles. He just pulls them in, makes them look just like algae. Disappears right into the background.
Wow.
Positively amazing. Here's two males fighting. Once again, they're smart enough, these cephalopods, they know not to hurt each other, but look at the patterns that they can do with their skin. Okay? Just an amazing thing. Here's an octopus. Sometimes they don't want to be seen when they move because predators can see them. And here, this guy actually can make himself look like a rock, and looking at his environment can actually slide across the bottom using the waves and the shadows so he can't be seen. It blends right into his motion blends right into the background. The moving rock trick. So we're learning lots new from the shallow water, still exploring that deep, learning lots from the shallow water. There's a good reason why. I mean, the shallow water is full of predators. There's a barracuda. And if you're an octopus or a cephalopod, you need to really understand how to use your surroundings to hide. In the next scene, you're going to see a nice coral bottom. And you see that an octopus would stand out very easily there if you couldn't use your camouflage, use your skin to change color and texture. Here's some algae in the foreground, and an octopus. Isn't that amazing?
Like I was chilling.
Now Roger spooked him, so as he took off, the cloud of ink lands, and when he lands, the octopus says, "Look, I've been seeing, best thing to do is get as big as I can get." That big brown makes his eye spot very big, so he's bluffing. Let's do it backwards. I thought he was joking when he first showed it, so I thought it was all graphics. So here it is in reverse. Watch the skin color, watch the skin texture. Just an amazing animal, can change color and texture to match the surroundings. Watch him blend right into this algae. 1, 2, 3.
I don't know, they must have little tiny muscles that can contract different parts of the body. But again, pretty amazing ability.
Standing ovation.
All right, so the arthropods, because of this exoskeleton, they have to periodically shed their exoskeleton. It's called molting. And it's an important part of them sort of growing to reach their sort of mature adult size. And this grasshopper, for example, when it hatches from the egg, it's really small, lives for a while, grows larger, but then it has to break out of its exoskeleton, grow larger, and form a new exoskeleton. And it might do this several times until it eventually reaches its adult stage. I have up here a little exoskeleton from a cicada that I found around my house. You see them all the time. Like we used to, in my yard, on our fence, or we had like this wooden swing set sort of thing, and we would always find these things attached to it. And it looks like it's a big insect, but if you look closely, it's not an actual insect. It's just the exoskeleton. What these do is they find a place they can sort of grasp onto. The back of their exoskeleton splits, and then they sort of pull out of it, but the exoskeleton stays, and it stays attached to the fence or wherever you found it. The stages are called the egg stage, then the nymph stage, and it will go through several until eventually reaching the adult stage. So this is called incomplete metamorphosis. It's just growing larger each time. It's not changing its whole body structure. It's just getting larger each time. Because that's what we're going to talk about complete metamorphosis in a minute.
Like a caterpillar?
Yes. So here you see an example. I got a couple of videos showing some molting arthropods. This is a time lapse. This is a spider crab, and the next one's spider crabs as well. They have this thick, hard, protective exoskeleton. Now this is sped up a little bit. You can see it moving around and getting little bits of food. But you can also see along the edge of its back carapace, this part here, you see sort of it's starting to outgrow it. And so it's about time for this crab to have to molt its exoskeleton. So it's going to just slow down here in a second and then gradually sort of emerge from the exoskeleton. And then for a little while it's going to be sort of soft until its new exoskeleton forms. And that's the time when it would obviously be vulnerable to predators because it doesn't have that protective layer. So then you have the exoskeleton still there, and now you have the crab. You can see it's a different color. It's still soft at this point. It's going to take several days until a new exoskeleton will form. Arpan?
Wait, is it like, can it like attack against predators still like
When it's soft,
Yeah.
after, no, it probably would go find a hiding spot until it can regrow that new exoskeleton.
Does it bite humans?
Does a spider crab?
Yeah.
I don't know.
How does it
Griffin?
stay there?
Is that basically like the crab meat?
Yeah, that, what you eat is that part that came out. If you eat crab legs,
Serious things combined into
all
one.
right, Camel, you're eating that inside part that's under the exoskeleton. Here's another example.
Around the first full moon of winter, an army materializes. Spider crabs. For the past year, they've been feeding in deeper waters. Now they march across the seagrass plains.
That's all in the world.
Hundreds of thousands of them.
They're going to get out.
They clamber over one another.
Talking about cricket party.
All right, shh. Camel, be quiet.
Creating great mounds. Nearly 100 meters long. They're not seeking mates, neither are they laying eggs. They have come here in order to grow. Like all crabs, their bodies are enclosed in a hard, unexpandable shell.
It's like goo.
So, to grow, they have to break out of it. And that allows the soft one that has developed beneath to expand.
Is this like 9
It will
large
take
scales?
days for the new shell to harden. Its legs are so limp that they won't work properly.
All right, so you can see that's molting. There's also another form of metamorphosis called complete metamorphosis. This is when the organism basically looks completely different from the larval stage to the adult stage. So the stages are called the egg, which hatches into the larva. Its main job is to eat and consume as much food as possible, storing up energy. Then it forms the pupa stage, when it's in the process of changing into the adult. And out of that pupa stage emerges the adult. Its main job is to reproduce, to mate, to find, to lay eggs and start to cycle again. That's complete metamorphosis. Here you see just a little time lapse, again, of a
How did it?
caterpillar, pupa stage, and then from that is going to emerge the adult.
Wait, so is that molting too? Or?
That's not called molting, no. It's called metamorphosis. All right, so we're going to be looking at some insects later this week, some preserved insects, and we're going to look at grasshoppers. So which group is which class does the grasshopper belong in?
It's inside.
Insect. So it's an insect, has 3 body sections, has 6 legs. The body sections of insects, the front one is called the head, which contains sense organs, the mouth. The middle section, where the wings are attached and the legs are attached, is called the thorax. And then the end section, posterior part, is called the abdomen. That's where reproductive organs are, respiratory organs. And all insects have those same three segments. So in the head we have the antenna, one pair in insects. And what is the purpose of antenna? What's their function?
To like feel around.
Taste.
Yeah, for sense. They taste, smell, sense vibrations. They're just sort of, they have multiple purposes. They have an eye. And do you know anything unique about the eye of an insect? Joe?
Like little, hexagons or like.
Yeah, they have what's called a compound eye, which is made of many smaller sort of lenses all together to form their eye.
Don't be like they like you see like a bunch of different.
It's hard to say exactly how their very tiny brains like interpret the information coming in, but maybe. The mouth parts are very specialized. So different insects will have different mouth parts. You know, some are used for biting, some are used for cutting through a leaf, some might have a proboscis for reaching at nectar and flowers. Depends on its food. They're all adapted to a specific type of food. In the abdomen of this grasshopper, you see that number 7 is labeled these tiny little holes that are in each segment. Those are called the spiracles. That's how the insect breathes. It takes air in through those holes. The female grasshopper will have a part at the end of the abdomen called the ovipositor. It's a reproductive structure. It receives sperm from the male insect. That's how eggs come out. And a female, many types of insects can store up sperm from a male and hold on to it for years at a time, and then use it continually throughout that time to fertilize their eggs as they release them. And you can tell if the insect's a male or female based on if it has an ovipositor or not. Many insects, not all, have wings. Some have protective wings that are very hard and thick, and then flying wings sort of underneath. For example, like a ladybug, the spotted parts you see are actually wings. They're thicker, harder wings that are on top. When that ladybug's going to fly, those sort of pivot up, and underneath are the thinner, more delicate wings that they actually use to fly. And number 10, legs. Obviously insects, we just said, have 6 legs total. They could be different. For example, the grasshopper has 4 similar, smaller front legs, and then 2 larger rear legs used for hopping. Just depends on the insect and what its function is. You see another little view, same sort of thing. So what would you call this smaller one?
Male.
No?
Female.
No?
Nymph.
That's the nymph stage. And this is the eventual adult. So this nymph will have to go through multiple moltings until it can reach the adult size.
Right.
And here's a picture showing how they release their eggs into sort of a little burrow into the ground. Eventually those eggs hatch and then start the process of growing back into the adult stage. All right, we're going to stop there. We've got a couple slides to do tomorrow, but for now I'm going to pause there. There was a